But when I read similar novels, I saw that they all had a similar theme of a damsel in distress, overcoming a patriarchal narrative and coming out strong at the end, which is again a beautiful pathway and it is realistic. But fantasy allows you to change the rules.
You can make the damsel create distress.
Exactly, right? And that's what I wanted to bring about in the book, that, hey, you know, Satyabhama is this war mistress and, you know, she leads a coven of women soldiers. You have Mati, the pirate queen. And so I just wanted to get these very cool characters who I have loved seeing on television or reading about in books. And I thought, you know, why not bring that in an Indian setup?
Welcome back to another episode at the Nest Show with Naghma. And today I have a guest who has been a sensation recently, not just in India but abroad also, with his book The Dance of Shadows, the latest one, and before that The Sons of Darkness, Gourav Mohanty. How has it been being in Delhi, Gourav?
Oh, it's been absolutely amazing, and thank you, Naghma, for having me on this show. And with that beautiful introduction, I feel like I'm on Coffee with Karan, and you know, this is just Ananya Pandeying through this.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate the fact that you called me here and we're here to talk about fantasy, and especially in Delhi, in a weather where I'm not sweating yet. So I think that's definitely a good sign.
Good thing. You've been touring a lot.
Yeah.
You covered Bangalore, Mumbai, and now you're here in Delhi to do your tour to different bookstores.
Yeah,
how has this experience been?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's like my Bharat Jodo Yatra of my own, and it's meeting readers from different states and different cities is always a rewarding experience because
of course.
I mean, of course, there's social media where they send me hate DMs whenever I kill one of their favorite characters.
Of course.
But meeting them and seeing the faces behind those display pictures is a much more intimate experience that I feel brings both the author and the reader closer in this common world which we have created, and I think for me that has been very enriching.
Has your experience been similar during book one also?
No, book one, in fact, I was just starting out. It was more, like it's like a startup where I was rocket singing, Ranbir Kapoor's movie, inviting everyone, like, hey, you know what, just check it out.
Please check out my book.
Right, and these signings were mostly photo ops where, I used to go and just sign the books. And if anyone walked in those stores, I used to just start up a conversation with them. Hey, is Mahabharata something which you're interested in? Do you like Game of Thrones? Something on those lines.
Interesting.
But when I went to Bombay this time, we had a book show or book talk at Fictionary, a beautiful bookstore by the way.
Yeah, of course.
And it was packed with readers, not people who were just interested in fantasy. Everyone had read book one. And then I felt like, okay, now I have this Reddit and Discord server.
Now you're the hero.
I'll try and be modest at least in the first half of the show. But though it just felt very rewarding in that sense when I saw the chairs weren't empty. I think that was a very kind and sweet experience that I hope to replicate in the years to come.
That's nice. But then right now you've been only talking about your experience in India, but I also understand that you have a bigger fan base abroad. Your book has been doing amazingly well even before it became a hit in India, right? What was the journey like? Because it's something very different. Because normally when we meet Indian authors, we know about their book being a success in India, and then yes, there is a different deal that they get and the books goes abroad. You have the complete reverse journey here. So how different is this journey and how has your experience been in this journey?
I think my experience and journey is so different because I was publishing epic fantasy. I was writing epic fantasy, which is a genre that was not very much accepted by the Indian publisher in current form because of the advent of social media and the bestsellers that are there in Indian market. They were worried about the book's length. It is a chunky book, but compared to the fantasy scale, it's a micro mini situation. I mean, if you compare with Brandon Sanderson or George R. R. Martin, right? I have barely written anything. But for example, I had a conversation, now I can speak about it because that company no longer exists, is Westland. And they were very happy with the book, but they wanted me to split the book into like 2 parts. I'm like, okay, it's already a quartet. And if I split this book, the whole meaning of epic fantasy is then diluted. So I stuck by my, what I wanted to do because I had a well-paying job. I was in a law firm. I thought, I don't want to compromise on this one thing which I really want to do. But I got very lucky. It was a Cinderella's journey because the word of mouth, when I indie published, started spreading around.
Oh, that's
and
good.
especially,
You had done that first in India.
Yeah, I was hybrid published initially with Lead Start.
Okay.
And but 3 months down the line, the book really became luckily popular on BookTube outside India.
Lovely.
And it reached my agent in London, who just said that, okay, you know what, I love what you have written. Let me do an auction of this. And anyway, long story short, well, I'm here. And when I go there, where this genre is a lot more appreciated or a lot more famous or popular, I went to Worldcon, which is the Oscars of fantasy, and I realized that I was, you know, walking shoulder to shoulder with all my inspirations, all the Dronacharyas to my Eklavya, you know. So that was I was playing it cool and keeping it James Bond, but internally I was screaming like a Disney girlie. So I was just like, it was a beautiful experience.
Oh, that's crazy. But why do you think that epic fantasy as a genre, or even dark fantasy as a genre, why do you think it's not that popular in India?
I think it has to do with the perception of fantasy as a genre. I doubt it that if anyone read the book, they would not like it. It's just, I feel that that's almost impossible. See, the thing is also fantasy, if you just describe all the books under the fantasy umbrella, under one genre, it is reductionist. Because fantasy is as wide as a medical field. You have your epic fantasy, you have your dark fantasy, then you have your romance fantasy, and then there's coffee fantasy, then there is urban fantasy. It just can keep going. And depending on what you like and what kind of books you like reading, if you choose that particular book, it will reach out to you in ways normal fiction will not be able to. But the thing is, in India, when anyone speaks about fantasy, it's always Harry Potter or Percy Jackson. So then that gets relegated to, okay, it's a children's thing. It's magic, it's absurd. You know, it falls in that realm. It's not serious or something on those lines. So, and that is also because of the existing novels which claim to be fantasy as well on our shelves, which is generally mythofiction.
Mythology,
so once people read, let's say a Sanderson or let's say a George R. R. Martin, or even go beyond that and read the popular books, like for example, Fourth Wing is becoming a big thing in India now.
It is
slowly, we are trends that will help a lot because a lot of bookstagrammers thought, oh wait, this book is all the rage. Let me read this so that I can also get the algorithm to reward me. But when they read that book and they're like, wait, I love this book. Why not read something similar? And then I think that's how the thing starts. There is all it needs is a one sort of an earthquake on the top of the hill, and then the avalanche will start. So
no, that's true. I mean, even from a book size, which you were talking about, even I had mind blocks. How do I pick such a huge book? Because I don't have so much of time. Neither can I carry it in metro every single day. It's gonna be tough. But touch wood, even my inspiration was from Fourth Wing, because when I read Fourth Wing, even though the book is huge, I liked it. Then I was like, okay, it's okay, you can give it a try. Sons of Darkness, what is it? Let me check it out. Huge hype on the internet, but I was so grateful that I read it, because one, honestly speaking, as a reader from an Indian author, I know I'm being judgmental here, but I did not expect it. And I am somebody who likes fantasy, and I like how you said, a lot of genres within fantasy, whatever it could be. I am somebody who enjoys reading if it is written well. I don't care what exactly the genre could be. So I'm really glad and happy that it came. And also, the tagline that keeps telling about it being the Indian version of Game of Thrones in a different alternate universe. Who came up with that?
I mean, I'm really grateful that Dan Jones gave this line. He's like a UK best-selling author. And you know, we sometimes request other authors to read the books, and Bloomsbury and Head of Zeus did that. And they all got very excited. Gaurav, we have news for you. I was like, what? You know what you keep saying all the time? Someone has actually said that about your book. I'm like, yes! Paste this on the covers everywhere. So we got very lucky, because Dan Jones is a great guy. He's very celebrated in UK. And for him to share this comment has been a great journey. And for that, actually, I also want to thank Anand Neelkantan, because he was the first person to ever blurb my book when I was still indie. I was nowhere famous. I had a contact who worked with him in Indian Oil Company, and he was very kind enough to take on my book, and he gave me a very clear caveat: if I like the book, I'll give it a blurb, otherwise I won't. I'm like, sure.
Amazing.
And then he gave me a blurb that Indian fantasy genre finally comes of age with this book, and I was just blown apart. And I think that was so sweet of him. Yeah, so you know, when these authors take a chance on newbies, I think it's just, that's the kind of shower of blessings which we need. So
world comes round. I'm currently reading Anand Neelkantan's Mini Ramayans, Mini Lessons.
Okay, wow.
Oh, that's really nice. Oh, interesting. So when it comes to marketing the book, because you told, obviously within the Indian audience, there, I'm sure you went through a lot of issues with people not accepting the book. I'm sure you would have had a J.K. Rowling phase when you're giving out manuscripts and everybody is rejecting, telling this doesn't work. So I'm sure you had that phase. How much rejection did you actually face?
Luckily, I have a number to this because I did make a reel,
Okay.
that I just decided to catalog all the rejection emails that I had just to have fun with it.
Okay.
And I think I had 13 rejections
Okay. Not bad.
over the
Okay.
course of 1.5, 2 years.
Okay.
And which is interesting. It actually, I saw myself develop as a person as well, because ever since law school, you apply for internships, you get the acceptance. I got my job. Everything has been smooth sailing, right? And suddenly you start facing these rejection emails who don't even read the book, right?
Yeah.
It's just on the fact that, okay, it's an epic fantasy book, 200,000 words, okay, we're not doing it. So I realized, okay, this is not going to be as easy as I thought. And but I'm glad that, throughout the process I kept developing. And I think any endeavor, not just book, it's not just about how talented you are, it's about passion plus perseverance, I think that means grit. So I think if you have the grit to just stay on the path, it just helps. And J.K. Rowling's news about how many times she was rejected really helped in staying on course.
That's 100. 13 is nothing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good. No, we're not that bad. So when it finally got picked up from your agent in London and you started with your journey, I'm sure you've been interacting with a lot of Indian authors and how the publishing journey looks like in India.
Yeah.
How different is it?
So my interaction with authors have been obviously in these fests
Yeah.
that I keep meeting them, and it's been actually interesting because to be honest, I haven't had that much experience meeting Indian authors.
Okay.
The ones that I've had have been very number oriented, to be really honest. It's all about how many books did we sell, how many books did we do this. That is something which has not interested me per se, because I like to talk about the craft or just books or what books did we like. And this is an experience which I had when I went to Worldcon, where we all met these legends, and suddenly Joe Abercrombie said, "Let's go for dinner," and I'm like, "What dinner with him? What's
with
happening?" Right? And we just sit there and we just spoke about our experiences. No one spoke about how many books have they sold. For me, that was a much more rewarding experience because that is exchange of ideas. Authors are also people, right? But in India, what I found, again, my very limited experience, I haven't had the pleasure or the opportunity to meet a lot of Indian authors. But the ones I've had have been very focused about how many books have we sold, what is the market price point. And it's something, for me, it's like if you know the price of everything, you know the value of nothing. And for me, that just took me away from the process. I'm like, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. I'm not interested in that. If the book is doing well enough to feed me, I'm okay with it. Of course, numbers matter because it's economics which determine the demand for your book. But I don't want to make that the whole identity of it.
Makes sense. Talking of feeding you, you are an advocate by profession. How did you manage a profession like being an advocate and managing this creative journey and write a book that's so huge, which I'm sure you would have invested hours and hours into it? How did this entire mix happen?
So I was working in a law firm in Mumbai, Shardul Amarchand, and that meant long taxing hours on a day-to-day basis. And I think that was the major driving factor for writing this book, because all the ways I could not torture my bosses, I could torture my characters. So I think that really helped.
Oh my, okay.
But,
Glad I did not work with you at any stage.
But jokes aside, my team was actually amazing. But I think the way when I was writing, I never thought that this would be a book that I would ever complete. It was just a therapeutic hobby for me, where where I had a sense of control, where there was a sort of an escapism that took place, where I could write a book which I wanted to read. And I was really enjoying the process. It was just over the course of 3.5 years, I realized, wait, I'm about to finish this book. Wait, then what? And that's when I realized that, okay, maybe now I can call myself a writer. I have written a big chunky book, and the way I was able to manage it, obviously this is something which I know in hindsight. Like when I was doing it, it's not something which I was very conscious of. But when I look back, I realized that I was always time blocking, that there was just this 1 hour before I used to go to sleep. Where I think the muses descended and I used to write the books. Then I think just every day these efforts compound, and you don't realize it when, if someone told me at the start, Gaurav, it will take 4 years to write a book. Oh hell no, I'm not writing this. Of course, 4 years, who's going to waste time writing a book, man? There's so many things to do in life, etc. But when you started doing it without worrying about the destination and just enjoying the journey, then the time doesn't feel like a crunch factor. And before you know it, any good work takes time. But if you know how much time it's going to take from the starting, it might dissuade you. So, in fact, that's the advice I give a lot of new authors as well, that please do not worry about finishing the book and how much time will it take. Just enjoy the journey.
Just write.
Just write.
That's why you have editors.
Exactly.
Just write.
Yeah, exactly.
True. So when you were writing, how much of the book was done? Was it like initially when you wrote only book 1, and then once it published, you did book 2? What was it like? Did you write everything and then you divided into book 1, 2, like that? So how was your
I wrote book one, and then while I was looking for my publisher, and obviously the rejection course of 1.5 years, right? So I was just like, this is horrible, man. This is taking me, and my hobby is gone. Like, writing was a therapeutic hobby for me. So I thought, okay, let me just start book 2 as well, you know, because it's okay. Even if it doesn't get published, I'm writing for myself at the end of the day. And let's say if it does get published, I'll already have book 2 in hand. So that process continued simultaneously. And I'd also thought of milestones ahead in the series. So what I love doing is I love writing scenes, which really comes to my mind. And then I stitch them all together through a plot. That's my writing process. So I started writing the cool scenes from book 2. And once my deal got sorted and I finally had security and I left the law firm, the second book came out a lot faster than it would have taken. So which puts me in a problem because then they expect the third book to come out in the same record time. And I'm like, see, I'm going to be faster than George R.R. Martin. That's all I can promise, you know. And I definitely have age on my side, so that also helps. So,
interesting. But why this genre? How did you end up here? You could have written literally about anything.
Right.
But why here?
That it started with a train journey, you know. So Pune to Bhubaneswar did not have a direct flight.
I was just hoping you will say while I was in the Hogwarts Express.
Oh, I wish that happened too. I wish I had a more dramatic answer like that, but no, it was while I was in the Konark Express from Pune to Bhubaneswar, 36-hour train journey, by the way. I had downloaded something illegally on torrent, and I thought, okay, what is this? It's interesting. And then I started the first episode. It was Game of Thrones first episode, and by that time Game of Thrones had not become famous. It had just come out. And I look at this first episode and I'm like, what is this? Okay, this is like this magical thing that I've seen and it is so cool. And by the end of 10 episodes, I've not even reached Bhubaneswar and I'm done with the entire season. And of course, when the Ned Stark moment happens, I remember I was in the top tier of the train. And the moment Ned Stark's head was chopped off, I got up and I hit my head on the top of the train, like the ceiling of the train. Because that was such a beautiful moment. And then I realized that second season is they have not even started shooting it, but it's based on a series of books. So the moment I landed in Bhubaneswar, I got the books and I devoured them over the next 6-7 months. And I'm like, this is so cool. Okay, what about India? Let's see. I'm sure there must be some Indian book in a similar setting. I just couldn't find anything, you know. And there are beautiful fantasy works, but they call themselves spec fic because they don't want that fantasy label. But again, beautiful works, but they're not epic fantasy, you know, where there's a big immersive world building. So I was like, okay, why is it not there? And then I started reading other novels, you know, because I couldn't find like Malazan. I went to Brandon Sanderson. But then in my 5th year of law school, when you know you have this day zero, that on the first day you get a job. So you don't have to do that dumbass internships again, which I had to do all the 4 years. So suddenly my 5th year has opened up completely, and I was just like, okay, let me give it a hobby. I love experiencing and pursuing new hobbies. And I wrote one chapter, which in hindsight was shit, but my friends are very encouraging, and I was like, okay, this is something I could do, and then that led to this. But I think for me, what fantasy as a genre does, it just, because you know, in this world, nothing is left to be explored per se till science really helps you out, and then you can go to Mariana Trench or space. But everything which could be explored by human agency has been explored. So that sense of adventure is just gone. And I find that sense of adventure in fantasy novels, and that is just something, I mean, it deals with real human emotions, but through this lens of a sailor, you know, where you get to travel to exotic lands without having to worry about visa, and you know, and especially if you're applying for visa in India, you have to, like, it's such a cumbersome process. You don't have to do all of that, and it just transports you to worlds. And I wanted to transport my readers to a world which I am creating, and
which you're successfully doing.
I hope so.
That's brilliant. So, while you talk about your writing journey and even your characters, what I personally felt from the book is that you have amazingly strong women characters. They are just something that I can look up to and worship if required. They are that strong, amazing women that have been portrayed in the book. Was this a conscious decision?
Oh, definitely. I think when I've seen these badass women in movies, and I've been just so, they look so cool, be it playing an Assassin's Creed Odyssey or you know, Galadriel in Lord of the Rings, and Cersei Lannister in Game of Thrones. These are just strong women, you know. And I've read, for example, I read Palace of Illusion. That was when I was a kid, and that was a beautiful book. But when I read similar novels, I saw that they all had a similar theme of a damsel in distress overcoming a patriarchal narrative and coming out strong at the end, which is again a beautiful pathway and it is realistic. But fantasy allows you to change the rules. So
you can make the damsel create distress.
Exactly, right? And that's what I wanted to bring about in the book, that, hey, you know, Satyabhama is this war mistress and, you know, she leads a coven of women soldiers. You have Mati, the pirate queen. And so I just wanted to get these very cool characters who I have loved seeing on television or reading about in books. And I thought, you know, why not bring that in an Indian setup? So
interesting.
That was the whole
so can
idea.
you tell us a little bit more about your characters? Like, people, I'm sure a lot of people still haven't read the book, and if they want to understand a little bit about your characters, say Satyabhama, say Mati, or your librarian. So it could be people like that. Can you tell us a little bit about the characters? Why they are who they are?
Right. Okay. So Mati, the pirate princess, she's from Kalinga, she's from Odisha. So the thing is, every time, like in Mumbai, when I used to tell that I'm from Bhubaneswar, everyone looked at me as if I'm Malala Yousafzai, who has come from Afghanistan to USA. Oh, what an opportunity to come and work in Bombay. Fuck off. Okay. So I thought, okay, I wanted to change this narrative. Odisha is so cool, has such a rich history. Kalinga literally colonized Southeast Asia, and you know, we have these amazing sailors. But just because of climate change, the ports of Odisha, they got messed up. And then Britishers, when they were coming from Madras, they went to Calcutta and the whole journey changed. But Odisha has a rich history. Bay of Bengal was known as the Kalingan Sea before. So I thought, okay, let me create a character to show this world. So from there, Mati emerged, who was, all Mahabharata says about Mati is she is Duryodhan's wife from Kalinga. That's it. There is nothing else. I thought this gives me a lot of vacuum to work on. And Mati became this symbol of Oscar Wilde's picture of Dorian Gray, which I love. It's one of my favorite books.
Interesting. Okay.
For me, Mati was someone where conscience is nothing but a front for cowardice. Like, she just does not have a conscience filter. She just does things which work for her. And that is not something which she measures her actions with. An agent of complete chaos, and I love that. And you know, so Mati has been that, and anyway, she's a pirate, so they always represent chaos energy. To balance that out, I have Satyabhama, who represents order. She is Krishna's third wife, and I came across a legend that Krishna and Satyabhama flew over Narkasur army in northeast, basically Assam. Whenever we speak about Rakshasas, right, it's all Lanka, right? But there was a glorious Rakshasa empire in northeast India, Pragyotisha, where they are still worshipped. And Narkasura's son even participated in Mahabharata. So Krishna and Satyabhama flew to fight Narkasur. Krishna fainted, and Satyabhama had a sword duel with the Narkasur. And I was like, this is so cool, because Indian mythology, if you look at it, is obsessed with archers. You have a sword fight, and that to a woman, and that is just brilliant. And I thought, why is this a footnote character? Why is this legend not known? Especially when Krishna fainted and Satyabhama had to step in. I mean, like, that's like, he was the damsel in distress in this situation, and Satyabhama rescued him. So from there on, I started this plot of, okay, how Satyabhama was his third wife and what that brings into, because she always had this comparative thing with Jambavati across, at least in the Puranas. So I thought, let me have fun with this, and Satyabhama became this beautiful, beautiful character that I had so much fun writing. So there's Satyabhama. In the second book, we have Bahura, who's a librarian princess. She has come out of my obsession with Pinterest. You know, this Pinterest introvert.
Oh, yeah, true.
So, like, I think the best way I can describe Bahura is she's a Ravenclaw. I think she just, everything Ravenclaw, Rowena Ravenclaw emphasized or valued. Bahura is everything that Ravenclaw symbolizes.
Now that you told it, okay, my perception changed. Okay, makes sense.
So she's out there to save her sister from an ancient plague, and suddenly she's thrust into a world where she has to quest, and the only person she has with her is a governess, an old governess. So this governess situation was inspired from the Butlers and P.G. Woodhouse novels. I love Woodhouse, I love Jeeves, and from there on, this entire system came out. So,
wow. Okay, that's a lot of stitching and mixing and your imagination playing an amazing thing. So once you started working with these characters and people started reading them, I'm sure you would also have faced a lot of criticism. Because in India, especially if you take anything mythology, even in the today's existing mythological fiction, no matter how good the book is, there is a community of people who will tell against it because you fictionalized stuff. That's away from a little, and I do not believe this. Your belief comes into picture. I don't have words to tell. You've literally broken it, mixed it all together, added different color, flavor, everything, and then you created an entirely different world. If somebody comes, I'm sure you would, okay, I don't want to go to two extremes, but I'm sure you would have had a lot of criticisms. What did some of the criticisms look like?
So, I have been very lucky. The thing is, trolls like these don't read big books.
Ah,
So they have
okay,
not
makes
been able
sense.
to get through the book
Okay.
so far. So far I have been very lucky, because initially when I was publishing this book, at least my father was a little concerned. He's like, why don't you use a pseudonym? Just like write.
Yeah, exactly.
Earlier my name was
Yeah.
Varog, by the way, on the name
Yeah.
of the book. And I thought, no, it's okay. I'm going to stay true to the craft which I've written. And of course, it's like a huge disclaimer at the start that this is a alternate
exactly, your
universe
author's
and
note.
whatnot. My lawyer and me comes in there. But then so far it's all been love, anyone who has read the book and they've just not had a problem. If someone publishes a one-page summary of it and then the trolls will read it, maybe then they'll come after me. But so far they have not been able to read the book. So
okay,
I've been lucky
that
way.
actually makes
The length of
sense.
my book has been my greatest shield.
Yeah, I think that actually makes sense. But yeah, in a good way, of course, that is helping you out. So this involvement of different places, like in the book too, you've involved the Northeast area a lot. So how much of these are conscious decisions? How much of these are just inspirations and you just wanted to explore? Are there any other intentions that no, at this particular location I want to give focus, and you intentionally did that? So where your story is playing, how did you pick these locations?
The world building was very intentional. My goal has always been or my driving force has always been to pick places from the shadows which deserve more spotlight. And Northeast India that way was so cool, because the way their geography is has shaped the way their civilization has evolved, even their culinary taste. For example, all the food items there are fermented, because given how much rainfall they have and the humidity they suffer or experience, given fellow ODI, I can relate to them. Fermentation is more important to them than spices per se. Like their food is very dry and not bland but dry, but they use chutneys to spice things up. So that has kind of shaped unique food habits. Mawsyndrap has the highest rainfall. They have these rubber bridges in Northeast India, where the people used the aerial roots of these rubber trees and created bridges across rivers. And that looks like something straight out of a Tolkien world. So I thought, okay, why not use this to create these tree cities of Pragjotishapur, where this whole, I don't know, James Cameron's Avatar comes into picture and meets Northeast India, where, see, you already have so many beautiful fantasy worlds, but does any fantasy world suffer from mosquitoes and humidity? No. That's the Indian element we bring out, and we show how these Rakshasas dealt with mosquitoes. And I hate mosquitoes with my whole vigil and fervor, because I think removing them from the food chain will have no effect on the food chain whatsoever. So I found Rakshasas, at least through this book, I show how mosquitoes are tortured there, by the way. There are these lamps which trap them so that the people can live there better. And so that was a very conscious thing to like get the culinary food habits of them and mix into a fantastical world building. See, for me, mythology has always been a combination of history plus imagination plus the philosophy of the civilization which wrote it. Right? So there is historical element involved in terms of the Mathura being a republic. Like, in fact, a lot of people say
Very
that
true.
democracy came in India way before than Athens. So I thought, okay, that is why I created Mathura as a republic here, where there are senators. Similarly, Magad is like an empire, like a German empire of sorts. And Hastinapur is this confederacy of kingdom, like a European Union. So I thought giving these, and that's what world building is, you give character and life to the cities themselves. That is why when you go and when you read these books, the books which I love reading, like Game of Thrones, you just, okay, King's Landing is like a hot place, Winterfell is this really cold place where things are difficult to go by. And that's how it surrounds you, this whole 4D experience. So that's why world building for me has been very intentional, where I research on how the geography of the place was, whether they were by the riverside or not, and how did that affect the religion or the culture or the language or the coin or the currency or something on those lines of those people.
How was your research process like?
Just
how much of your daily job did you have to forego for that?
Oh, I remember I had to become very adept at doing alt tab, so that whenever my seniors used to pass me by, I used to just quickly switch to legal case laws on Manupatra, when I was actually searching, okay, how can you eliminate mosquitoes from the food chain, something on those lines. My Google search history is very dark. I think if that is ever revealed, they'll think I'm a psychopathic serial killer. With the whole Ted Bundy photo that I have does not help. No, but in terms of research, I think it's always a simultaneous process. Questions pop up like, okay, I'm designing the city. What issues will the city have? Okay, let's say there are underground levels to it. Like Hastinapur, for example, Delhi is said that has 7 older variations. You have Tughlaqabad, Shahjahanabad, and all the way to Indraprastha. So Rome has a very similar history, that Rome is also built upon itself, like 7 cities.
Yeah.
Over it. So I thought, when I was building Hastinapur, I thought, okay, what are the difficulties Romans face?
Okay.
For example, if you do go to Rome now, they can't build a metro.
Yeah.
Because every time they dig, they come across some archaeological site which UNESCO decides that, okay, this cannot be disturbed, right? So I thought, okay, what will that city involve? You know, how will they place themselves?
Okay.
Hastinapur was also very caste obsessed in that sense around that time. So in Hastinapur, in my book, the divisions of cities is caste specific. Unlike Magadhan Empire, where it is more like Mumbai, where everything is mixed together.
Yeah.
So when I was doing these kind of researches, then I just had to pop a question on Google, like how do people behave, what are the city dynamics. Anthropology is not my natural course, but I was so interested in how a city is built and what are the problems they face. And I think when you add these little nuggets, I feel that city just feels more relatable. But that's just city. Even in terms of things like time, you know, like Hinduism has such beautiful concepts of time when it comes to the yugas.
Yeah.
As per the Hindu history, in at least the way they're said in Puranas, the years are of like 17,000 years, 20,000 years. Like one day of Brahma is equal to like a gazillion years in India. And the way the clock works, so just to understand that, because it is in pure Sanskrit and a dialect of Sanskrit which even normal CBSE Sanskrit people will not understand. So to understand that, I had to look through a lot of YouTube videos, and while I was looking through it, and I was like, okay, I'm able to understand something. Even for Maya. Sorry, this answer is just going on and on because I'm having so much fun with it. But I remember when I watched this movie Matrix, and Matrix is one of my favorite movies. Keanu Reeves is just amazing in it.
It's amazing.
But then I read an interview that the Wachowski twins were inspired by the concept of Maya in Hinduism, where Maya is this illusion which we have, which sage or when they used to meditate, like meditate to a really high extent, they could break out of that illusion to see that there is nothing around us. Which is exactly what Matrix is about. Like this entire thing which they see around the world is a code. But when you achieve a higher consciousness, you can get out of the code and see what the world really is. In that case, it's basically a destroyed city of Zion.
True.
But that is what our Hinduism has been always saying, that, you know, we break out through the Maya and we will know how the world exists and we can meet Vishnu or the higher consciousness. So I was like, okay, these kind of things is something which I would not have discovered in my normal course of my life, but I love the fact that my research has unveiled these amazing things.
That's brilliant. So how would you say throughout this entire journey of writing your book, a passion that converted into a successful career in itself, how have you evolved as a person?
I definitely have a lot of conversations to talk in a bar about. I think that is definitely, I'm never run short of conversation starters. That's definitely, but you know, the thing is, when we study in law school and then you go into a law firm, our accumulation of knowledge is always like vertical. But as a writer, my knowledge has grown horizontally. You know, it's been lateral. There have been so many things which I've learned, and I always love knowing new things. And I think writing has helped me tackle that whole hobby, or this thirst for knowledge just has ticked all the buckets there, because the number of things that I've had to research, because, you know, something just pops up. How does an animal work? You know, how are the Airavats there? Recently, I came across a study which said that in India, I used to have these enormous elephants, which used to make, like our current elephants look like dwarves, and they were taller than a T-Rex, and they have unearthed all these fossils. Now I'm like, okay, this ties up with the Airavats which are there on the cover of the book, right? And I thought, okay, wow, this is amazing. There is science behind what I'm trying to do as well, and this just connects it. So I figured out what kind of difficulties would they have had, because, you know, till now the biggest elephants that you think of are mammoths, and they're all woolly mammoths, always found in the Arctic or the polar regions. I was like, wait, we have an Indian version who's pretty badass, who's taller than a T-Rex, and, you know, why can't we have a Jurassic Park built on India's system? So I thought, okay, this would be something cool. So I just
but isn't that also the belief that as years passed, we became smaller? It's like today, if we talk about the Chiranjeevis, and if we, like how in the movie Kalki came into picture, and Ashwatthama was that huge a person. Isn't that what this will again be?
Correct, exactly. And because when they came to Australia, when humans first settled in Australia, when they came there, they saw something which is called megafauna, like huge animals, lions who basically had a pouch, and they were as tall as elephants. So it kind of really sits well with the whole theory, even in our mythology, which says that the humans used to live for a lot longer. When the Mahabharata took place, they were all 90 years, 80 years old, and they were at the prime of their age then. So quite possible, you know, the thing is, we do not know these things yet. That's why we call it mythology. There is a bit of belief system involved in it. But coming back to the original question, that how has it changed me as a person, I just feel that it has just kept me young, alive and curious. I just feel that there is so much in the world we can still discover just using Google. And I think that I'm just really happy that I'm getting to as part of my profession.
That's nice. No, talking to you, Gourav, I feel I'm sitting in front of somebody who's very lively, who's loves making conversations, who's always supposed to be the center of attraction for any party. Why is your book so cruel? Like, why is it so cruel? How did you create a world which is, if in a normal scenario, when I watch Gangs of Wasseypur or any of these movies, which I have problem watching because I feel it's very cruel, your book is some 20 times more cruel. How did you create that? Are you somewhere hidden? Is there a psychopath hidden somewhere?
I definitely think so, because at least when my father read this, he just looked up at me. He's like, there is something wrong with you. I'm glad that you're writing this book, because otherwise you would have a different path, and rather than be a lawyer, you would be behind the jails. I don't know. I remember when I went to Worldcon, I met these fellow authors who, after interaction, they called me, you're a cinnamon bun, and that's the name they gave me. But when they read my book, they're like, okay, cinnamon bun ... of doom. And this is the name which has been attached to me. I'm like, this is not a great name, by the way, for my brand. But I don't know how this works. I do not know. I'm not really a dark person, I hope. But I just enjoy, I guess there is something which really enjoys exploring how violence changes a person's nature, what it does. Or I wish I had a better answer to this, but I think I think Robert Louis Stevenson said something, that within every human there is a beast and a human at war, and the fact that the human is winning shows how civilization is progressing. I think these books allow the beast to sometimes come out, and
at least the way of letting it go is via writing and not anywhere else. Great for that. What is your future looking like? How many books are you planning on? Are there any other worlds that you're planning to build?
I'm really fascinated with the idea of yoginis. They are these beautiful ancient Indian witches who lived in a patriarchal society, so as to speak. But rather than witches around the world who were burned, witches in India were revered. And they said that, okay, you build your temples in the outskirts and we will not mess around with you. So the yoginis build these beautiful temples, which are so different from Chaucer Yogini, which is in Bhubaneswar as well. There are only 4 yogini temples in Survive. In India, which is like a land of crore of temples, and that is interesting, and especially because even the temples, you have Indian temples are conical in shape, but these temples are something which are called hyper-atrial. Like Parliament is kind of based around that whole model. Because the whole idea was that when they used to perform their rituals, they used to gain these superpowers called siddhis that allowed them to fly. Like, that is so cool. Why is this not more known? So, and the fact that these women were doing this in a society which looked down on women at that point of time.
At that point of time.
Is kudos to them, right? So I thought I'm going to build on this world and try and bring Indian witches to the forefront of fantasy. So that's something which I'm really interested in.
Wow, okay.
And make it a lot shorter novel, so that, maybe this is also a way to introduce fantasy into India. To give them what I want to get them to read, but maybe in a smaller bite-sized novel compared to this at least. So that this can be like a stepping stone for them to discover the rest of the world.
That would be amazing, because somebody who knows how to work around with fantasy, if they are able to give the capsule format, which is normally accepted by an Indian crowd, I think there's nothing like that. So have you been researching already on the Chaucer Yogini or even Kamikya for that matter?
Yeah, of course.
Have you been started with your researches and plotting and all of that already?
Absolutely, because the yoginis also feature in the second book, Dance of Shadows. So my research had already started, and it's my research which showed that there is just a huge world waiting to be explored. So I've already started writing the book, and it's almost 50% done. But it's amazing that the amount of tantric stuff that I've read. My mom was a little concerned. She was looking at me like, what are you zooming on? What is going on? Are you like heading into some cult or something? I was like, Mom, this is just for education and research purposes. But it's been a very rewarding journey, because there is just so much, there are so many facets to truth. And what the tantrics do, they follow something which is called the left-hand path of God. Even if you Wikipedia this left-hand path, it's actually a way to spiritual salvation, which is basically you shock the body into doing something which it is not accustomed to, and that just opens up your chakras. And I was just like, this is how even gym works. Right? That's the whole idea. You suddenly lift a weight and like you break through that and you ascend through those levels. And I feel that, I find this all very fascinating. So I'm hoping to explore these worlds in future works.
Wow, that's impressive, I would actually say. And we really, really look forward to it. But then, yeah, I hope your mom and dad, whatever they fear, never come true. But then I always see on your Instagram also, you have a very friendly, lovely family. Who's your biggest critique?
My brother.
Okay.
My brother, definitely. No, I think they both have been extremely supportive of this journey, and after Tare Zameen Par, they had no choice because, you know, suddenly all career options became open. So that really helped.
Wow, okay.
Kudos to Amir Khan. But no, I think my mom is always worried about my stand-up comedy career for sure, because just whatever is happening with comedians, and I'm like, no, my comedy set is always clean, you don't have to worry about all these things. And my father is always concerned that someday some troll will read Sons of Darkness from page 1 to page N and then realize that, okay, I'm like, Papa, even that will work, you know, generally that is the shortest way to get to Big Boss, right? Look at Munawar Farooqi's career. I'm like, please someone try to ban me.
Please,
So that, you know, I
then
think
people will want to know why was this book banned.
Yeah, I mean, I won't do well in Big Boss, but I think it would definitely be a start. I think I'll be a good roadie, let's see.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, secretly, I always wish that. That's amazing. So now, once book 2 came into picture, your signings are going on, a lot of tours are going on, you're interacting with a good amount of your readers also. What is the best comment or feedback that you've received from somebody amongst your readers, which literally made your day?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked this question because it just happened in Bombay right now, and I was standing in Fictionary, and I could see there was a boy who wanted to speak with me, but he was just smiling and it was a little awkward. So I went up to him. I was like, "Do you want to speak with me?" He's like, "You know, I'm an introvert, so it's very difficult for me to put these in words. But your book." And he just did this, and he just didn't say a lot of words, and he looked very emotional. And that was something which I was not used to. Generally, people come and tell me that your book is so good, you killed this, and so on. And it's a passionate expression. But someone who was so touched by what I wrote is not something which I was expecting. And I was like, no, dude, I mean, the fact that you're emoting this way, it's speaking like 10,000 words, you know, so thank you so much. And he's just like, no, you are great, and what you're writing is something which I've always wanted to read. And so thank you. I hope I see more introvert characters in your book. And I'm like, yeah, there is a librarian princess in the second book who's an introvert. So he's like, I can't wait to read it. And thank you, you know, because we are a very small, because there is a small fantasy community there. And he said that we are a very small group, and to just see an Indian author in that shelf is something which is very rewarding. And I was just like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful moment. It was very surreal for me. So felt very Om Shanti Om, the cameras are moving around, but I just like, I'm really grateful to that reader.
That's beautiful. And what was the worst hate comment that you got because you just killed your favorite character?
I get a lot of DMs in caps lock letters, and I already imagined that this is going to be like, why, what is wrong with you, who hurt you? It's always been these kind of comments, and I think that itself is one of the highest forms of compliment, so I'll take that any day. But in terms of if there's been any negative comments so far, I don't think so. I'm sure there are, but I think my Instagram request filter does a good job in keeping them away.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, you know, that's it. That's the whole thing.
Interesting. Anyway, Shreys, thank you so much, Gourav, for your time and for bringing this genre into India. I don't know if we could say back into India, because it's been there at some point. It's always been there, but we kind of forgot about it, and somehow we always started appreciating the foreign authors because it's always greener on the other side, and then we forgot that our authors, how people could do this. And now seeing that, it's, as a reader, I'm so happy seeing that. As a book reviewer, I love the book, so in every way possible, hats off to you on that. Good luck to your journey. Have more signing sessions, have more amazing author talks here and there, so that more and more people can fall in love with the genre. I think that is a huge responsibility now you need to take forward.
Thank you. You know, I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side till you plant and water your own land. So I think hopefully this is doing that thing. And thank you so much, Naghma, for bringing me here and asking such amazing questions. I had a blast. So this felt like a rapid fire round in a fun way. So I'm glad that we had a great conversation.
Yeah, we'll schedule a rapid fire separately. So that we'll only do screened questions.
Listen, you have to be like Coffee with Karan and give me some of the questions just 5 minutes back like he does it, okay? There's no way everyone is so witty all the time in that episode. So
got it. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. To all the viewers, there's one book that you definitely need to go explore. Yes, there is a hidden psychopath hidden somewhere in there, so that is definitely gonna surprise you, but yeah, for whatever it's worth, it's one read that you really cannot miss. Start with book 1, otherwise you're gonna be lost. Please start with book 1. Never pick up book 2 directly. Start with book 1. Get to know the characters, because each of them had so much of depth that if you miss a page, or if you, it's like a Nolan movie, you miss a scene, then you leave everything. You don't know. You have to go back and just figure out what exactly happened. Then you finish it, come back, take your time with the books.
You just call my book a Nolan movie. That's the highest form of compliment I could ever receive. Like, he is God. I'm going to watch Interstellar tonight, by the way.
Please, at the theatres, in the theatres. So, thank you so much, Gouravs, for being here. Everybody, please go check it out. And that's up to you. His DM is available.
Yes,
as long as you don't do curse words, DM will not filter you. And see you soon on a bigger stage.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.